If you've ever traveled abroad, you've probably realized there are some common American ingredients in foods that you'll hardly ever find in another country. And honestly, I'm fully aware of how bad a lot of American ingredients and products are for you, which is why you can't find them abroad, and part of the reason why I live abroad. But obviously, if you grow up with something your whole life, you're bound to miss it when it's not available to you anymore. So in this video, I'm going to specifically be talking about foods that I miss from the US now that I live in the UK and can't find them. Or I guess to make it more general, American foods that are hard to find in the UK. We'll start off with grocery items. First and foremost, we have ranch. This is my absolute favorite dipping sauce. Not a huge fan of ketchup. Mayo and barbecue are pretty good, but ranch is just the absolute best for salads or dipping anything like fries, onion rings, wings, chicken strips, whatever it is. It's hard to describe the taste of ranch, but it's a white sauce that comes in a bottle, and I've seen it a few times in grocery stores here, although I think salad cream is a lot more popular, but it doesn't taste the same at all. Even comparing it to Hidden Valley or a bottle of Ken's back home, which I think isn't great, it's still way better than what I've had here in the UK. But if you've ever had home style ranch, I promise you it's life-changing. Next is dill pickles. So far, the only pickles I've been able to find here are sweet, and also for Americans looking for pickles in general here, they're called gherkins. But I've bought tons of pickle jars that say tangy and crunchy or words similar to that would make me think, oh, it's not a sweet pickle, it's a dill pickle. But nope, they are always sweet pickles. So having a dill pickle on a burger or a sandwich is just way more satisfying to me than a sweet pickle. So if anyone here knows that dill pickles exist here in the UK, please comment the brand and name on the jar because I've been craving dill pickles so much lately. Next we have Velveeta shells and cheese. Now I miss mac and cheese in general, which I have had here, but it's just not as good as some southern homemade style mac and cheese. But if we're going to be specific with grocery store style mac and cheese, the absolute best kind is Velveeta shells and cheese. For those of you who don't know, it has like a gooey cheese packet inside of it instead of a powder cheese mixture that you would normally mix with milk and butter. And the cheese mixture in the Velveeta is just absolute heaven. It's the creamiest and gooeyest mac and cheese that I just miss so much. Next we have salsa, and you will see a theme as I continue through this list that Mexican food just doesn't exist here, which makes sense, you know, we're so far away. I'm from Los Angeles, so I'm used to incredible Mexican food. I've crossed the border before into Mexico just to grab tacos for lunch and then came back, so I am a bit spoiled in the Mexican cuisine area, so of course I miss it. I try to make my own burritos and tacos at home, but I haven't found any good salsas to just complete it and make it like super satisfying. Also, sour cream. I found one bottle at Tesco and it's like water. It tastes like nothing. So if I could find a good salsa and a sour cream, maybe I wouldn't miss Mexican food as much, or at least satisfy the craving a little bit. And to piggyback off the last point, it's hard to find corn tortillas to make street tacos with. I've only found flour tortillas, which is fine for burritos, but it would be nice to make some street tacos with the small little corn tortillas to get a little slice of what life was like back home every Tuesday on Taco Tuesday. Next up, we have specific spices like Tony's Creole, which is my absolute favorite spice in the world, and any Trader Joe's spices like chili lime, everything but the elote, salmon rub, Cuban style citrusy garlic, just so many spices I'm used to spicing my food with, and now I obviously can't find them because Trader Joe's doesn't exist here. I was able to bring back Creole and a few Trader Joe's spices on my last trip home, so I think I'll continue to do that every time someone comes to visit or I go home, just constantly bring spices back. Next we have Jiffy cornbread mix, which I guess it doesn't specifically need to be Jiffy, but just any cornbread mix would be great. I love cornbread, and especially for the holidays, my mom has some amazing recipes that required a box of cornbread mix, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It didn't feel as much of the holidays as it usually does for me because cornbread is just a staple of American cuisine, so that's definitely something that would make me feel more at home if I had access to it. Next is Slim Jims, which honestly is going to sound gross when I describe it, and I am not denying that, but they do taste really good. It's kind of like a beef jerky, but way more processed and put into like these little sticks that have a crunch when you bite into them, and honestly, I probably shouldn't be eating these anymore because I know that they're filled with horrible ingredients, but they really are so delicious. Next, we have graham crackers, which in all honesty is not something I tend to eat on a regular basis. I usually only eat them with s'mores, which I feel like is a very American thing, but I've never even seen a graham cracker here before, and the reason I'm including it on this list is because recently I was on a hike with my Irish friends who live here, and we were talking about, you know, what we had packed for lunch for the hike that day, and they were making fun of us saying, "Did you pack peanut butter and jelly sandwich with graham crackers?" Because apparently all Americans have a country accent, and I thought it was the funniest thing because they just think Americans just eat graham crackers as a side dish, which I personally never have, but ever since they brought it up, I have been craving a s'more. Next, we have something that is very specific and you can only get one time of the year: Girl Scout cookies. Oh my god, I love Girl Scout cookies. Tagalongs are my #1, but I also love Thin Mints and Samoas, which of course I know you can't get here because Girl Scouts don't exist here, but for those of you who don't know, Girl Scouts is the equivalent to Girl Guiding here in the US, and every year between January and April, Girl Scouts sell these cookies to raise money for their programs, and they are so good. Next is coffee creamer, which in all honesty, I'm not a huge coffee drinker at all or really caffeine drinker, but my mom is, so when she came to visit, we went to multiple stores looking for coffee creamer for her and realized it just doesn't exist here. I think people simply use milk and sugar here, which is honestly way better for you than the flavored coffee creamers we have back in the States. I know they're filled with preservatives and horrible ingredients, but they do make your coffee taste insanely good. This next one isn't something specific, but anything peanut butter related. We love peanut butter in the US, and I know I can get jars of peanut butter here in the UK, but I miss like peanut butter cookies, peanut butter candies, stuffed pretzels with peanut butter, anything with peanut butter that's built into it. It just makes snacks so much better. Now I'm gonna dive into foods that you can't get here that are from like a restaurant or a company, not necessarily things that you would get at a grocery store and make at home. First up is Mexican food, as I've already touched on: tacos, burritos, queso, chips and salsa. You name it, I love it. Back home, there are a few hole-in-the-wall places that have dollar meat tacos on Tuesdays like carne asada or carnitas, dollar fish tacos on Wednesdays, and dollar shrimp tacos on Thursdays. So literally 3 days a week I'm eating tacos with refried beans and Mexican rice and chips and salsa. So I have my favorites around my house back home. Of course, they're not like well-known or big chains, but I'm still on the hunt for good Mexican food here in London. Every time I see a video saying like best Mexican food in London, I go out and try it, and nothing has tasted as good as back home. I'm not giving up though. I'm sure there has to be a good Mexican place here somewhere. So if you think that you know the best Mexican food here in London, please comment below so I can try it. Next is breakfast burritos, which is simply, you know, hash browns, eggs, cheese, your choice of meat. I usually go with bacon and add avocado, all rolled up in a huge flour tortilla, and oh my god, it's by far my favorite breakfast in California. Next would probably be waffles, but if I'm being completely honest, it is regionally specific to California because I've been to other states wanting one and they just don't really exist. Even when I lived in Austin, Texas, I thought for sure they'd have them because they're so well known for Tex-Mex, which is actually completely different from California Mexican food. And they only had breakfast tacos, not breakfast burritos, which aren't the same. I make these at home, so it does satisfy the craving pretty well, but once I find a good salsa, like I mentioned earlier, I think I'll be set. Next is a drink item, not food, but matcha. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big coffee or caffeine drinker in general. The only drink I absolutely would love to start my day off if I'm like treating myself is a matcha. And back home, every single place I've ever been to has fantastic matcha, but here, not so much. I've been on the hunt for the best matcha in London and so far have been severely disappointed. The best I've had is at a tiny coffee shop right down the street from my house, which really was amazing the first time that I went, but then I went back for a second time and it was awful. So it must have been that specific barista that day just knew how to make it well. So again, if you have any matcha recommendations, please let me know in the comments because that would be life-changing for me living here in London. And these last three are specific places that just don't exist here in the UK. I actually don't think they exist abroad at all, but first up is Chick-fil-A. For those of you who have had KFC or Popeyes here in the UK, Chick-fil-A is the top tier version of those. It makes the other two seem horrible, honestly, in comparison. Their chicken is so delicious and the Chick-fil-A specific sauce is just unreal. They even do a fried chicken biscuit sandwich with honey for breakfast, and oh my god, it's so good. I miss it so much. Chick-fil-A doesn't even actually taste like fast food. It's actually like the best quality you can get for fast food chicken, which is really nice. Next, we have something that originally was California specific, but now has spread to a few other states: In-N-Out. It's a fast food burger spot that literally only has 3 things on the menu: double cheeseburger, cheeseburger, and hamburger. The only thing you can add on are fries and a milkshake on the side. They've kept their menu pretty minimal because they do burgers just so well. If you ever have a chance to go, it's not on the menu, but order your burgers and or your fries animal style. It's a local secret and it will just change your life and your In-N-Out order. And if you do like some spice, you can also add chopped chilies too. It's by far the best fast food burger in the US. Sorry to non-Californians who think it's Shake Shack or Whataburger. You are wrong. And lastly, we have a Southern California specific chain, The Hat, which has the most incredible pastrami sandwiches and chili cheese fries. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so hungry talking about all this. And their portions are insanely huge. The pastrami is thinly sliced, put on the bread with mustard and dill pickles, and it is truly one of my favorite things to eat in this world. And I'm sure it's super unhealthy, I can't deny that, but it is incredible and I can't recommend trying it enough if you ever find yourself in Southern California. I'm sure there are so many other items and specific restaurants I miss that I can't think of right now, but as soon as I'm editing, I'll remember and wish I had said them. But if I did forget something that you as an American miss while you're living here in the UK, or honestly anywhere abroad, throw them in the comments below. We can all miss them together. Now let's take a look at why I decided to leave the US and move to the UK in the first place.